This is the BYU Women's Cross Country Championship ring, and today we're going to make it look cool. I'm going to use this sheet of bathroom tiles to build my set. I'm going to lay them on the Aperture Nova panel light, and now I have a floor with glowing grid lines. How I got this idea was looking at photos of nature. There's this natural rock formation called a basalt tower, where rocks form in hexagonal towers. I figured Home Depot has some hexagons, and we could build our own towers. Okay, now that I've got all of my tiles set, let me show you how we're going to photograph this. We're using the Canon R5 with a 100mm macro lens, tethered with the Tether Tools cable all the way to my MacBook, using the EOS Utility 3 app, a software that's free from Canon. Side note, only Canon cameras can use this software. Rings are pretty reflective, and they reflect all the surfaces around your room. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use your standard piece of printer paper to fill in those reflections with white light. So as you see, as I bring this paper into my ring, you can see that it reflects that white paper. And we'll go ahead and take a shot from that. Using this piece of paper, I'm going to illuminate the top part of this ring where it says National. So I'm looking at my live preview. I'm just going to put that reflector in the right spot. It doesn't matter that my paper's in my view. I just need to get that part of the ring that says National looking great. The other thing is I need to get the bottom of the ring where it says Champion. And I got to be careful here that I don't budge the ring, because if it moves, we have to start this whole process over again. So I'm just going to set that down at the bottom there. There it goes. We're getting something in there. Tips for this is if you're trying to find a reflection, sometimes you're just playing around, moving to see what that reflection does on that ring will kind of help you discover where to place that fill card. Back angle from this side. You can see that we're filling in just a little bit. The reflection's kind of nice. Here I'm introducing a secondary light source. I'm using the Westcott optical spot. You don't have to have an optical spot to do this. You could use a regular parabolic reflector or a snoop modifier for your light. What we're trying to accomplish with this is just to have a pinpointed light that I can get through the face of the jewel of the ring. And so I'm gonna walk around and shoot this a couple times, and again, I'm gonna experiment with which angle to go in. Angle of incidence is an important part of this thing. My ring is facing off in this direction away from my camera. I probably needed to shoot the light at 45-degree angle in, 45-degree angle out towards my camera. Let's give it a shot. So I'm gonna point that right at my jewel there. You can see in the live view kind of what I'm seeing. And then as I shoot that, see if I have enough light for that. Oh, too much light. And I think with this, get a variety of different shots, because in the post, that's where you're gonna ultimately decide what you like the most. And the shot that you might like might not be the shot that you like in the end. It might be one of the secondary shots that you shot. A little bit dead on. Eliminating the diamonds on the front of the Y. The gem on the inside, the jewel is looking illuminated. So I got the shot that I need for the jewel. I'm going to try to focus on the diamonds on the side real quick. Oh, too bright, back that off. You want to be able to have some specular highlights in there, but you don't want it completely blown out. Okay, be careful. You don't want to bump your camera, because if you bump your camera, you're going to have to restart this process all over again. All these photos need to be able to line up in Photoshop. Let's say not to bump your camera. I'm actually pulling the trigger, which is the bump, but that's not bad. Come a little lower. So I had a hard time getting that Champion with the pass-through light on the paper. This time I'm going to bounce light off of it. So go ahead and hit that shot for me. One more time. Perfect, it's filled in. That's exactly what I needed. Got all my reflection shots done. But remember, this is a final image. I don't want this to be white. I'm actually going to change it to blue. I think that just matches the school colors and it goes really good with that jewel on the front of the ring. So now I'm going to take a shot with this. And that's going to be our base image. But I'm also going to introduce one more element, a special effect, some artificial smoke. Here I have the Smoke Ninja. I'm going to show you how to turn it on. You just tap this 3 times. It turns on and it's going to take a second to warm up. So the Smoke Ninja Pro has a couple different settings. For this shoot, I'm going to use the dry eye setting and the fog setting. What the dry ice does is it lets the fog sit a little bit low and it hangs low, and the fog setting just adds smoke into the air. So I'll do a couple exposures using the dry ice setting, and I'll use a couple exposures using the fog setting. Later in Photoshop, I'll show you why I did this. I'm gonna fill up these tiles with low hanging smoke, and I'm gonna get a couple captures of that. There we go, more smoke the better. Take a couple photos of that. Side note that I forgot to mention, you gotta be wary about smoke detectors. I haven't had any problems with the Smoke Ninja Pro setting off any smoke detectors, but it would be a good idea if you work on a campus or somewhere else to contact your fire marshal to see if this is appropriate for your space. Now we're gonna take all those images and we're gonna bring them together in Photoshop. I've pulled the images that we took into Photo Mechanic and I went ahead and made my selects. So let's go ahead and look at those real quick. So you can see on this first one, I got that national reflection. Second one, national reflection, a little bit better. And then at the bottom, we see that champions on the ring. Left side, we get the Coach Taylor name. And then I go into the smoke images and I selected this one with the low, the dry ice looking fog. And then here's our smoke fog. You can see there's a little bit more detail in there. And then I actually pulled in another smoke one just because it had a little bit more detail that I wanted to add in. So I'm gonna show you how to bring these into Photoshop. So in my Photo Mechanic, I have it set up so if I hit Command E, it will launch these photos into the program that I have set up. And that program is Photoshop. In this part of the video, I'm going to show you how to bring all your images into Photoshop and load them into a single working file. Then I'll show you how to auto align all those layers. I went ahead and did the edit on my images in Camera Raw, but I'm going to show you how we're going to bring these all in to a single layer. So I'm going to hold Shift, select all these layers. I'm going to open. It's going to open all these images as their own file in Photoshop. It loaded all these files into separate tabs. What we're going to do is we're going to go to File, Scripts, Load Files into Stack. We're going to hit Add Open Files, and then we're going to hit OK. And what it's going to do is it's going to take each one of those images in from a tab, load them in. So you can see here, I got all the layers now loaded into one working document. You can notice that this last image, I accidentally bumped the camera, but there was a good exposure in there. We're going to use this image later. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to select all these layers. We're going to go to our Edit tab, Auto Align Layers, and we're going to use this Auto feature right here. One of the reasons I'm going to do this is because the table surface I was shooting on wiggled a little bit and my camera wiggled a little bit, so I wasn't perfectly still. If you lock down your camera and you lock down your table, this shouldn't be a problem. But if you do have a little bit of wiggle, this is where you're going to go to fix it. So we're going to go Auto Align Layers, and it's going to try to line up everything as best as it can. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a peek at how well it did. So here's our base layer image. Next one, next one. Looks like that ring is pretty solid. It wiggles a little bit there, but the whole background lines up. And right there, and then this last one doesn't line up, but we'll use parts from it later. I'm going to show you my final PSD file, and I'm going to go through each layer and show you the masks. I'm not going to show you how I went through and used the brush tool and a polygonal lasso. I think that would be kind of boring, and it would be a very long video. So we'll go ahead and jump back into Photoshop. So launching to my final PSD file, we could see we started here with this base image. This is where I used the Smoke Ninja on the smoke setting, and you can see all this texture in it. There's a little empty spot here, so I added another image that had more texture on this side. And you can see, I'll show you the mask if I just solo that. This white area, that's all I'm using from that image. It's just this white area to fill that in. So I'll turn that off and on again so you can see the before and after. Okay, this next image is a little bit unique. This was where I used the Smoke Ninja again, but I used it on the dry ice setting. You can see that the fog and the smoke is just kind of laying a little bit lower, but I used the screen blend mode, and I thought that added a really cool effect. And now all the seams of my set are glowing. Okay, so now we're going to add parts of the ring to it. So I went ahead and started with this left side of the ring. You can see that we have Coach Taylor's name right there being illuminated. I then added this other part of the image right here because I felt like it was a little bit too blue. I then used it in a hue saturation adjustment layer because I felt like the gold of the ring wasn't gold enough. Okay, now we're moving on to our next image. I went and brought this one in. You can see that's the champions, and I'll show you the mask there. It's just right there. I used a lasso tool to select this, and I brushed the parts that I needed from that other image. So here I'll go ahead and solo that layer. That's all the pixels that I'm pulling from the image. And we're just masking in the different parts of the ring that we need. So again, I did a little bit of a hue saturation where I made that gold a little bit more yellow. And then I'll go ahead and turn on this layer, and I'll go ahead and turn on this layer. And I'll go ahead and turn on this layer. And you notice that's a big part of the ring. We get the national, the front facet of the jewel, the left side of the ring here. I'll show you that mask again. And then I'll show you the solo of that layer. So we're just bringing in these different parts, again, just where we need it. And then I had a little issue on the L. You could see that that wasn't illuminated. I brought in just a little piece of the ring right there on the edge to illuminate the L. I actually brought in the jewel from another image. You can see the mask there. So bringing that in. And you can notice the L in national, the tail part of it is missing. So I went ahead and just used a clone stamp to fill that in. And then I noticed the top part of national wasn't filled all the way. So I even brought that in from another layer. This is kind of crazy how many different layers I've been using here. And then as we zoom in tighter to this ring, you can see all these different dusts and scratches and different pieces of the ring. I just went ahead and clone stamped that out. Added some curves. And then I went ahead and made a curves layer and set it just for the jewels in the Y and brighten that up. And I brightened up the highlights and the jewels on the left side. And then I added an unsharp mask, make everything a little bit more sharp. And then I added a lens flare. I'll go ahead and solo that layer out. So what I went and did here is this is a lens flare that came from a lens flare package. It comes on black. And when you apply it, what you're gonna do is you're actually gonna set it to screen blend mode. And what that will do is it will remove any black from the image and it'll just leave anything that's not black. And so that leaves us that little lens flare. And I think one of the important things that I did here is that specular highlight and that gem right there was actually already there. So that kind of dictated where I put that lens flare. Here is our final image. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. We'll see you next time.